Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, giving you your daily dose of the roars as we scream about the very stupid stuff going on in the modern world of technology. Do remember, I do these videos in order to get that dirty YouTube money so I can fund a SiliconDojo.com, free to the end user hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. If you're interested in attending our classes, take a look at SiliconDojo.com. If you want to help support our classes, free to the end user is not actually free. There's a donor box link down below. And with that, this could get ugly. This could get ugly. So yeah, it's kind of weird what's going on in the AI world. Like we have these two systems for artificial intelligence. We have the Yankee system for artificial intelligence, and we have the Chinaman system for artificial intelligence. And it appears that the Yankee system for artificial intelligence is basically to throw as much money at AI as absolutely possible. And maybe if you burn enough cash, people will be so interested in you burning cash that they'll come and give you more money. I guess that's the idea. And then you have the Chinaman concept of artificial intelligence, where they just build stuff and then they give it away for free. They give it away for free. Oh, yeah, this could get very ugly very fast. I do think this is interesting, especially the rivalry between China and the United States right now, with the whole question of what is the actual business value of a product. One of the curious things in the real world is sometimes the societal value of a product is very high, but the financial value of the product is exceptionally low, right? Think about this with SiliconDojo, right? I teach classes. I literally go to Durham, North Carolina every couple of weeks. I teach classes, and it basically costs me money. I teach in-person classes on actually how to deploy and build and stuff, all that kind of stuff in artificial intelligence, and that literally costs me money. On the other hand, I sit here and scream about very, very stupid things going on in the technology world, and it prints money. One of these things is valuable to society, and one of these things not so much. The funny part is the not so much thing is basically all blue skies from here as far as profitability is concerned. But anyways, and that's one of the big problems you run into in the business world sometimes, is sometimes you have a product. You have a product or service that is societally, the society needs it. Think about childcare. Think about elder care. Think about a lot of things that we have, especially in American society, where they just don't pay anything. They just don't pay, right? You know, a lot of the home health aides are literally making something like $18 an hour. They could literally go to McDonald's and make more money. They could either help a disabled individual be able to live a life with some kind of pride and dignity, or they can feed you people McDonald's slop. And the thing is, McDonald's might actually end up paying them more. Like, this is one of the things just to realize. And it's something you have to be thinking about, right? As an entrepreneur, as a startup founder, just because your idea has societal value doesn't mean it's going to be profitable. Doesn't mean it's going to be profitable. And so that's a curious thing that I see right now in the whole AI arms race is there's this idea, right? Sam Altman wants to throw $1.4 trillion into CapEx expenses, basically just building out things like data centers with the idea that AI is so valuable intrinsically that if he spends $1.4 trillion, obviously the return on that is going to be so much more. But the thing that I've argued about before is you look at companies like Meta, right? Mark Zuckerberg. God bless that passive-aggressive asshole. Anyways, right? Mark Zuckerberg, for some reason, he's decided that he wants, Meta to be, the premier AI company. Why? Who the hell knows? But right, so Meta has dropped. They're not open source. The Llama models, to be clear, they're not open source, but horseshoes and hand grenades, they're pretty close as far as most people will be concerned. But anyways, he's just started giving away models for free. Here's free models. You look at IBM. IBM, again, got to say a lot of good things about IBM as far as AI is concerned. They're giving away free models. So you have OpenAI and you have Anthropic. They're like, we're going to build all this infrastructure so that people will pay for our products and offerings. And then even within the United States, you have other companies that are just giving this shit away for free. Right? IBM sells services. IBM sells mainframes and servers and all that kind of stuff, right? An AI model, them, really isn't that big a deal. So they're like, we'll just give this thing away for free because what we really want you to buy is this whole other thing, right? That then starts knocking on OpenAI's market share. So anyways, this is interesting. Coming from China, Deepseek just dropped 2 insanely powerful AI models that rival GPT-5, and they're totally free from VentureBeat. So this is one of the interesting things, right? The idea with the Yankees, with the Yankee AI, is that we have the bestest models. Now, as I've questioned before, what does bestest actually mean? Again, a lot of questions there. But the argument is with Gemini 3 or a GPT-5, ChatGPT-5, the idea is that they're the best frontier models out there. So China may be able to produce models, but they're not at quote unquote good as these frontier models. And then Deepseek's like, what do you say? Okay, it's gonna get interesting. Chinese artificial intelligence startup Deepseek released 2 powerful new AI models on Sunday that the company claims match or exceed the capabilities of OpenAI's GPT-5 and Google's Gemini 3.0 Pro, a development that could reshape the competitive landscape between American tech giants and their Chinese challengers. Now again, as I've said before, everybody does propaganda. Everybody does propaganda. I have not a shadow of a doubt that China is doing propaganda with this. But the question is like, how much is the propaganda and how much do people care? All right, so let's say with Deepseek, Deepseek is not as good as GPT-5, is not as good as Gemini 3 Pro. Does that mean it's 50% worse? Highly doubtful. Do you think it's 25% worse? Also probably not. Is it 5% worse? Even if it is, would you care? Would you care? And that's one of the dangerous things with the AI arms race, is even if somebody puts out a worse product, again, 5% worse or 10%, even theoretically, would most people actually care? The Hangzhou-based company launched a Deepseek version 3.2 designed as an everyday reasoning assistant alongside Deepseek version 3.2 Special, a high-powered variant that achieved gold medal performance in 4 elite international competitions, the 2025 International Mathematical Olympiad, the International Olympiad in Informatics, the ICPC World Finals, and the China Mathematical Olympiad. The release carries profound implications for American technology leadership. Deepseek has once again demonstrated that it can produce frontier AI systems despite U.S. export controls that restrict China's access to advanced NVIDIA chips. So that's the other thing to be thinking about. This is coming out now, right? Those export controls started under the Biden administration. So there has been a full year of trying to restrict NVIDIA hardware from going to China. However well that has or has not worked. One of the things that this shows is that China can still keep trucking along. And has done so while making its models freely available under an open source MIT license. Quote, people thought Deepseek gave a one-time breakthrough, but we came back much bigger, wrote Chen Fang, who identified himself as a contributor to the project on X. The release drew swift reactions online, with one user declaring, "Rest in peace, ChatGPT." It's probably not that. It's probably not rest in peace, ChatGPT. But that's the thing. Like, in order to kill OpenAI, you don't actually have to be better than OpenAI. That's the worst part. Like with Sam Altman has put himself into such a shit position. Deepseek does not have to be better than OpenAI. All Deepseek has to do is put a dent in the story of OpenAI, and then OpenAI might just simply collapse on itself. Right? Think about it. OpenAI theoretically right now is a $500 billion company. It's written over $1 trillion in contracts. NVIDIA is putting $100 billion in. All of this kind of stuff is going on, right? And it's all based on a story. What if somebody is able to just nick that story? Think about that when I was doing search and rescue. So I did like paramilitary search and rescue stuff. And they were talking about military ropes. We were going through technical training, technical like rope work training. Anyways, and they were talking about how bad the military rappelling ropes used to be. And they were talking about the difference between a rope that had core and rope that didn't have core. So basically when you're looking at rappelling ropes, it's kind of cool. It's basically the rappelling rope is a tube. It's a tube of nylon. And basically, I don't know how it gets woven into this thing. Anyways, it has a lot of strength. And so you can put on your rucksack and all that and jump out of go out of a helicopter or whatever and go to the ground and you'll be fine, right? But there's 2 types of ropes out there. Hopefully the first type no longer exists, right? There's a type that doesn't have a core. So that's essentially just think about it as like a sock as the rope. And then you have a core. And what the core is what you'll normally see is that inside that little sock, you'll have multiple strands of this nylon cord that'll go through the middle just to give extra strength. And the reason they have that, as they explained to us during one training, is one of the soldiers, one of the trainers for one of the classes that had gone through previously, they were doing this rappelling course. So you got this nice little cliff, and basically the instructor is supposed to rappel off, hold the rope at the end or whatever, so the students can rappel after him. Well, apparently, it was the rappelling rope that they were using did not have a core, and when they were setting up or whatever, there's just a little nick. There's just a little fucking nick in that rope. And so when the guy went off, that little nick ripped. And then it fucking ripped all the way around, and he plunged to his death. And that was the thing. Right? The rope could withstand like 3,000 pounds of force or whatever, as long as there were no nicks in it. As soon as you do a tiny little damage to that rope, you die horribly. And that's why they put cord there. They put the core in the middle. So even if everything rips, then you still got that core so you can get your ass to the ground, and then throw the rope away. Anyways, I think about that, right? When you start looking at OpenAI and Deepseek, right? Does Deepseek need to be vastly superior to OpenAI? I don't believe so. Do they even have to be at the same level of OpenAI? I also don't believe so. I think they could actually be significantly worse, and I'm not saying that they are, but I think they could actually be significantly worse. But put so many question marks around what the fuck Sam Altman is doing that they could then end up fundamentally destroying the faith in OpenAI, which would bring OpenAI all the way down. Right? It's a whole thing in the startup world, the whole fear of a down round, right? A round where you get investment money, right? But it values your company less than the previous round can actually be the death sentence for your company. What happens if OpenAI gets a down round? What happens if people are like, I think AI is valuable. I like what OpenAI is doing. I don't think they're a $400 billion or $500 billion company. I think they're a $400 billion company. Is that a danger? Anyways, at the heart of the new release lies Deepseek Sparse Attention, or DSA, a novel architecture innovation that dramatically reduces the computational burden of running AI models on long documents and complex tasks. That's one of the things I also talk about with this whole AI thing. There's this concept that the AI tech stack is mature, and it simply is not. This is a very immature tech stack. We do not know how we're going to be using AI fundamentally in another 5 or 10 years. And I think one of the interesting things to be looking at here is that many people are throwing things against the wall and seeing what will stick. I mean, I remember Wins. Does anybody else remember Wins? Remember when Microsoft tried to own DNS? I remember that. That did not work out well, right? DNS won at the end of the day. But there was a real argument. 25, 30 years ago, there was a real argument. There was a thought that Microsoft might own the equivalent of DNS using something called Wins, right? That failed. But I think we're in the DNS wins moment of artificial intelligence where we really don't know what products will win, what products will fail, what architecture will end up being on at the end of the day. And so that's the other thing that's interesting looking at this with DeepSeek, that they're doing a different architectural style. And that's one of my arguments, that the architecture style might be the thing to win. Traditional AI attention mechanisms, the core technology allowing language models to understand context, scale poorly as input length increases. Processing a document twice as long typically requires 4 times the computation. DeepSeek's approach breaks this constraint using what the company calls a, quote, lightning indexer that identifies only the most relevant portions of context for each query, ignoring the rest. And I've actually been hearing about this a lot in the AI world. The whole idea is when everything gets submitted into the context window, the first thing is actually having some kind of routine go through and figuring out what actually matters and then trying to only deal with that. So I've heard about this. According to Deepseek's technical report, DSA reduces inference costs by roughly half compared to previous models when processing long sequences. The architecture, quote, substantially reduces computational complexity while preserving model performance, the report states. Processing 128,000 tokens, roughly equivalent to a 300-page book, now costs approximately 70 cents per million tokens for decoding, compared to $2.40 for the previous version 3.1 model. That represents a 70% reduction in inference costs. That's the other thing too. If you can make the models perform basically more efficiently, then you also don't need nearly as much hardware. Maybe you don't need an entire data center the size of Manhattan. Maybe you just need a data center the size of Battery Park, right? Let's see. Deepseek's claim of parity with America's leading AI systems rests on extensive testing across mathematics, coding, and reasoning tasks, and the numbers are striking. And here they give lots of numbers. Who the hell knows? Again, it's always funny to look at these numbers. It's a bit like looking at numbers for GPUs. Like, I don't know, whatever. There are a lot of numbers here that say DeepSeek is better. Unlike OpenAI and Anthropic, which guard their most powerful models as proprietary assets, DeepSeek has released both a V3.2 and V3.2 Special under the MIT license, one of the most permissive open source frameworks available. Any developer, researcher, or company can download, modify, and deploy the 685 billion parameter models without restriction. Full model weights, training code, and documentation are available on Hugging Face, the leading platform for AI model sharing. The strategic implications are significant. By making frontier capable models freely available, DeepSeek undermines competitors charging premium API prices. The Hugging Face model card notes that DeepSeek has provided Python scripts and test cases, quote, demonstrating how to encode messages in OpenAI compatible format, making migration from competing services straightforward. For enterprise customers, the value proposition is compelling. Frontier performance at dramatically lower cost with deployment flexibility, but data residency concerns and regulatory uncertainty may limit adoption in sensitive applications, particularly given DeepSeek's Chinese origins. So that'll be the interesting thing. So that's one of the curious things where well, the difference between China and the United States as far as competition is concerned. The United States really believes in monopoly laws around things like intellectual property, right? Whoever creates the intellectual property, they should have a monopoly on that intellectual property for a length of time so that they can get the outsized rewards for coming up with that concept, right? That is one of the ways that our system works. One of the interesting things is in the Chinese model, it's all about production. It's all about production, right? Whoever can take an idea and run with it fastest and hardest, those are the ones that'll win, right? That's two diametrically opposed ways of thinking about how business should operate. Now, one of the big issues that's been coming up for many years, for 20 years, is the whole idea is that China steals American intellectual property and then does what they do with it, right? Well, it becomes interesting, right? We're now in 2025. We're not in 2005 or 1995. We're in 2025 anymore, right? And, you know, they've got smart people and disciplined people, and they're building things. What happens when they are building cutting edge technology? They are inventing and deploying cutting edge technology, but they do it in a more open source world. So it's not even a question of export controls. It's not even a question of they're taking our idea and doing something with it. No, they're natively coming up with the ideas, the concepts, and all of that kind of stuff, and then they're deploying it. But they're deploying it in more of an open source model than we would. It becomes an interesting question then about how fast and how far that will be able to go. Maybe it'll do good, maybe it'll do bad. One of the interesting things is I know the Chinese people are like, yes, we are superior. Because God bless humans. We all think we're superior to everybody else. Right? Don't worry, we're all equal. There's white supremacy and there's Chinaman supremacy. Everybody believes they're the best. But one of the interesting things, again, with this whole system is the whole question, right? If you open source everything, if there are no constraints on what people can do, it becomes the interesting question of then do too many people build the exact same crap, right? So China just came out with this whole notification where they're really concerned about humanoid robots. Apparently, China has 150 companies currently building humanoid robots, and that is only growing. Like the Chinese government's like, wait. Like it's even on their list. It's on their list of like the most valuable technologies that they want to pursue. But they still don't want 150 companies going after it, right? If you produce too many goods for the market, if you saturate the market, as we talked about before, again, the market still blows up, even if you have a good idea going. So that will be one of the interesting things. Like, will their ability to scale and to start producing things in mass actually be a detriment in its own way? That's going to be one of the curious things to see, again, over the next 10 to 15 years. One of the curious things that I found being on this planet for almost 50 years now is nothing works out. Nothing works out quite the way you think it's going to work out. And so when you look at this, I don't know. I don't know what system will be better, in the decade, 2-decade time frame. So anyways, what are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about Deepseek putting out models, providing models for free to anybody who wants to use them that are superior, apparently, supposedly, to Gemini 3 Pro and to GPT-5? Right? What do you think about the difference, right? The idea, one culture believes in owning an idea, the other culture believes in just running with the idea as fast as possible. Do you think a lot of people are actually going to be able to do much with this model? Again, the other interesting thing to be thinking about this is like a 698 billion parameter model. So you need a pretty good server to be able to run that. Even if you want to run it locally, it's free. After you build the $40,000 server. So the interesting thing to be thinking about from a decision maker standpoint, are you still just going to go with an API call to OpenAI or whatever else? Because, when you start looking at the cost, doing API calls is just ever so much less money than having to build and support your own server. What do you think about all this kind of stuff? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just be a real Nick and put a strong American comment down there. Do you remember I do these videos in order to support Silicon Dojo, authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to use your hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We're having a class coming up tomorrow. We have more classes coming down the pike. If you're interested, take a look at our schedule. That's silicondojo.com. Do remember, free to the end user is not actually free. That's why I do these videos. If you want to help support education, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, see y'all later.